Maria Santos had been working as a housekeeper for the Wellington family for over 8 years. Every morning at 6:30 sharp, she would arrive at their sprawling estate in Beverly Hills, her worn leather handbag clutched tightly in her weathered hands. The Wellingtons were wealthy beyond measure, with Mr. James Wellington running a successful tech company and Mrs. Wellington managing her chain of high-end boutiques across California. The house itself was a testament to their success. 3 stories of pristine white marble and gleaming glass windows stretched across 2 acres of perfectly manicured lawns. Inside, crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, and imported Italian furniture filled rooms that seemed to go on forever. Maria knew every corner of this mansion, every hidden drawer, every secret passage that the architects had built for the family's privacy. But despite all the luxury surrounding her, Maria lived a much simpler life. She shared a small apartment with her sister in East Los Angeles, taking 2 buses each way to reach the Wellington estate. Her salary was decent, but most of it went towards supporting her elderly mother back in Guatemala and helping her younger brother finish his education at community college. The Wellingtons had 2 children. 16-year-old was away at boarding school most of the year, coming home only for holidays and summer breaks. Then there was 8-year-old Emma, a bright and curious girl with golden curls and eyes that sparkled with mischief. Emma was homeschooled by private tutors, spending most of her days in the mansion's converted library that served as her classroom. Maria had watched Emma grow from a toddler into the intelligent young girl she was now. While Mr. and Mrs. Wellington were often busy with their respective businesses, traveling frequently for work or attending social events, Maria had become something of a second mother to Emma. She helped with homework when the tutors left, prepared special snacks during study breaks, and listened patiently to Emma's endless questions about the world beyond their estate's gates. Emma was unlike most wealthy children Maria had encountered. Instead of being spoiled or demanding, she was genuinely curious about Maria's life. She would ask about Guatemala, about Maria's family, about what it was like to ride the bus across the city every day. Emma seemed hungry for stories about the real world, the world outside the bubble of privilege that surrounded her daily life. On this particular Tuesday morning in October, Maria noticed something different about Emma. The little girl seemed restless during her morning lessons, constantly looking out the window toward the front gate of the estate. During lunch, Emma barely touched her grilled salmon and roasted vegetables, instead pushing the food around her plate while lost in thought. Mrs. Wellington had left early that morning for a business trip to New York, and Mr. Wellington was locked away in his home office taking important calls with investors in Tokyo. The tutors had finished their sessions for the day, leaving Emma with several hours of free time before dinner. Usually, Emma would spend this time reading in the library or playing in her elaborate playroom, but today she seemed unable to settle anywhere. Maria was folding laundry in the main hallway when she heard the soft sound of footsteps on the marble stairs. She looked up to see Emma descending slowly, dressed in her favorite purple sweater and dark jeans. The little girl's face wore an expression Maria had never seen before, a mixture of determination and nervousness that seemed far too mature for an 8-year-old. "Emma, sweetheart, where are you going?" Maria asked gently, setting down the towels she had been organizing. Emma paused at the bottom of the stairs, her small hands gripping the ornate banister. "I want to go outside for a walk, Maria, just around the neighborhood." This request surprised Maria. Emma rarely expressed interest in leaving the estate grounds. The family had a beautiful garden, a swimming pool, tennis court, and everything a child could want for outdoor activities. The neighborhood outside their gates was quiet and safe, filled with other wealthy families, but the Wellingtons had always been very protective of Emma's movements. "Does your father know you want to go outside?" Maria asked carefully. Emma shook her head, her golden curls bouncing slightly. "He's busy with his calls. I don't want to bother him." Maria felt torn between her desire to make Emma happy and her responsibility to keep the child safe. The Wellington family had never explicitly forbidden Emma from leaving the grounds with supervision, but they had never discussed it either. Mr. Wellington was indeed busy with important business calls, and Mrs. Wellington was somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean on her way to New York. "If you want to go for a walk, maybe we should wait until your father finishes his calls," Maria suggested. "Then we can ask him together." But Emma's expression grew more determined. "Maria, I'm 8 years old. I'm not a baby anymore. I just want to walk down the street and see what's out there. We could go together, and I promise I'll stay right beside you." Something in Emma's voice touched Maria's heart. The little girl spent so much time isolated within the walls of the estate, surrounded by tutors and staff, but rarely interacting with other children or experiencing the simple pleasures of childhood that Maria remembered from her own youth in Guatemala. Back home, children Emma's age would walk to school together, play in the streets with friends, and explore their neighborhoods freely. Maria made a decision that would change everything. "All right, Emma, we can take a short walk around the block, but you must promise to stay close to me and listen to everything I say." Emma's face lit up with pure joy. "Really? Oh, Maria, thank you. I promise I'll be good." They prepared for their walk carefully. Maria made sure Emma had her phone, though the little girl rarely used it except to call her parents. She grabbed a light jacket for Emma and locked all the doors to the house securely. She even left a note on the kitchen counter explaining that they had gone for a brief walk and would return within an hour. The October afternoon was perfect for walking. The California sun warmed their faces while a gentle breeze carried the scent of jasmine from the neighboring gardens. Emma seemed to come alive as soon as they stepped through the estate's front gate. She marveled at things Maria had never thought twice about. The way the sidewalk felt different under her feet compared to the smooth floors of her house. The sounds of cars passing in the distance. The sight of other houses with different architectural styles. "Look, Maria." Emma pointed excitedly at a house across the street where two children were playing catch in their front yard. "Are those kids the same age as me?" "Maybe a little older," Maria replied, smiling at Emma's enthusiasm. "Do you wish you could play with other children more often?" Emma nodded vigorously. "Sometimes I feel like I'm the only kid in the whole world. My tutors are nice, but they're grown-ups. Is never home, and when he is, he says I'm too young to do anything fun with him." As they continued their walk, Emma asked countless questions about the neighborhood. She wanted to know who lived in each house, what the different flowers in the gardens were called, and why some houses had cars parked in their driveways while others had garages. Maria answered as best she could, enjoying seeing the world through Emma's curious eyes. They had been walking for about 20 minutes when they reached a small park at the end of the street. It wasn't much, just a few benches surrounding a small playground with swings and a slide, but Emma gasped as if she had discovered a hidden treasure. "Maria, can we go in, please?" The park was empty except for an elderly man sitting on one of the benches reading a newspaper. Maria saw no harm in letting Emma explore for a few minutes. "Of course, but just for a little while. We need to get back soon." Emma ran toward the swings with the excitement of a child who had never experienced such simple pleasures. Maria realized with a pang of sadness that Emma probably hadn't been to a public playground before. All her recreational activities happened within the controlled environment of the estate. As Emma swung back and forth, laughing with pure delight, Maria sat on a nearby bench and watched. She thought about her own childhood in Guatemala, where she and her siblings would spend hours playing in the village square, climbing trees and inventing games with whatever they could find. Emma had everything money could buy, but she was missing these fundamental childhood experiences. "This is the best day ever," Emma called out as she swung higher and higher. Maria smiled, but she also felt a growing sense of unease. They had been gone longer than she had planned, and she knew Mr. Wellington would eventually finish his business calls and look for Emma. She was just about to suggest they head back when she heard her phone ringing. The caller ID showed Mr. Wellington's number. Maria's heart sank as she answered the call. "Maria, where is Emma? I just finished my calls and went to check on her, but she's not in her room or anywhere in the house." Maria took a deep breath. "Mr. Wellington, Emma is with me. We're at the small park at the end of your street. She wanted to go for a walk, and I thought it would be safe if I supervised her." There was a long pause before Mr. Wellington responded, and when he did, his voice was cold with anger. "You took my daughter out of this house without my permission. Maria, I trusted you. How could you make such a decision without consulting me first?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Wellington." Emma seemed so eager to explore, and I thought. "You thought wrong," he interrupted sharply. "Bring her back to the house immediately. We'll discuss this when you get here." The call ended, leaving Maria staring at her phone with a heavy heart. She looked over at Emma, who was now trying out the slide, completely unaware that their adventure was about to come to an abrupt end. "Emma, sweetheart, we need to go back now," Maria called out gently. "Already, can't we stay just a little longer?" Emma asked, her face falling with disappointment. "I'm sorry, but your father needs us to come home." As they walked back toward the estate, Emma chattered excitedly about everything she had seen and done. She talked about how different the swings felt compared to the one in their backyard, how she had never realized that other families lived so close to them, and how she hoped they could take more walks together soon. Maria's heart grew heavier with each of Emma's innocent words. She had a sinking feeling that this would be the last walk they would ever take together. She had been working for wealthy families long enough to know that trust, once broken, was rarely restored. When they reached the estate, Mr. Wellington was waiting for them in the front courtyard. His usually composed demeanor was replaced by an expression of barely controlled anger. Emma ran to him excitedly, ready to share stories about their adventure, but he held up his hand to stop her. "Emma, go to your room. We'll talk later." "But, Daddy, I want to tell you about the park and the swings and—" "Go to your room now, Emma, please." The firmness in his voice left no room for argument. Emma's face crumpled with confusion and hurt as she walked slowly toward the house, looking back over her shoulder at Maria with worried eyes. Once Emma was inside, Mr. Wellington turned his full attention to Maria. 8 years, Maria. I've trusted you with my family for 8 years. You've been in my home, around my children, and I've never once questioned your judgment. But today, you took my 8-year-old daughter out into the world without my knowledge or consent. Mr. Wellington, I understand you're upset, but do you have any idea what could have happened? He continued, his voice rising slightly. Do you understand the risks you exposed Emma to? We live the way we do for a reason. Emma isn't just any child. She's a Wellington. There are people out there who would love to harm her or use her to get to our family. Maria had never thought about the potential dangers from that perspective. In her mind, they had simply taken a safe walk through a quiet, upscale neighborhood. But she began to understand that the Wellingtons lived with security concerns that didn't exist in her own world. I'm sorry, Mr. Wellington. Emma just seemed so eager to experience life outside these walls. I thought I was helping her, not putting her in danger. Your job is not to make decisions about what Emma needs, he replied coldly. Your job is to follow the guidelines my wife and I have established for our family. Today you overstepped those boundaries in a way that I cannot ignore. Maria felt tears forming in her eyes, but she blinked them back. She had worked too hard and for too long to break down now. What are you saying, Mr. Wellington? He was quiet for a long moment, looking toward the house where Emma had disappeared. When he spoke again, his voice was calmer but no less final. I'm saying that I need to reconsider your employment with our family. I need time to think about whether we can move forward from this. The words hit Maria like a physical blow. This job wasn't just her livelihood, it was her connection to a family she had grown to love. Emma especially had become like a daughter to her. The thought of losing that relationship was almost unbearable. Please, Mr. Wellington, she said quietly. I know I made a mistake, but it came from caring too much, not too little. Emma means the world to me. I know she does, he replied, and for a moment his expression softened. That's what makes this so difficult. But Maria, I have to put my family's safety first. I need tonight to think about this situation. We'll talk again in the morning. As Maria gathered her things and prepared to leave the estate, she could see Emma watching from her bedroom window on the second floor. The little girl pressed her hand against the glass and waved sadly. Maria waved back, wondering if this might be the last time she would see the child who had brought so much joy into her life. The bus ride home felt longer than usual. Maria stared out the window at the city passing by, thinking about Emma's excitement at discovering the simple pleasure of a neighborhood playground. She thought about Mr. Wellington's anger and his concerns about safety. Most of all, she thought about the impossible position she now found herself in, caught between her love for Emma and her need to respect the family's rules. When Maria finally reached her apartment, her sister took one look at her face and knew something was wrong. Over dinner, Maria explained everything that had happened, listened without judgment, but when Maria finished her story's response surprised her. "Maria, maybe this isn't just about you making a mistake. Maybe this is about that little girl needing something her parents aren't giving her." "Oh, what do you mean?" "You said Emma has never been to a public park. She's 8 years old, Maria. She should know what it feels like to play with other children, to explore her own neighborhood. Maybe today wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was exactly what she needed." Maria thought about words long into the night. She had always tried to be the perfect employee, following rules and maintaining boundaries. But what if some rules were meant to be questioned? What if Emma's eagerness to explore the world wasn't something to be discouraged, but something to be nurtured? As she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling of her small bedroom, Maria made a decision that would surprise everyone, including herself. Tomorrow, when she met with Mr. Wellington, she wouldn't just apologize and beg for her job back. She would speak up for Emma and what she believed the little girl needed. The decision terrified and empowered her at the same time. For 8 years, she had been content to work quietly in the background, grateful for steady employment and a chance to care for a family she loved. But tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, she would find her voice and use it to fight for a little girl who deserved to experience the fullness of childhood, even if it cost Maria everything she had worked for. Outside her window, the city lights twinkled like stars, and somewhere across town, in a mansion surrounded by gates and walls, a little girl was probably lying awake too, dreaming of swings and slides, and Maria arrived at the Wellington estate the next morning with a determination she had never felt before. She had spent the entire night preparing for this conversation, thinking carefully about every word she wanted to say. Her sister had stayed up late helping her practice, playing the role of Mr. Wellington, while Maria rehearsed her arguments for why Emma needed more freedom to explore the world. The morning air was crisp, and Maria's breath formed small clouds as she walked up the familiar pathway to the servants' entrance. She had used this same entrance every day for 8 years, but today it felt different. Today, she wasn't just arriving as an employee following orders. Today, she was coming as an advocate for a little girl who had shown her what pure joy looked like when she experienced the simple pleasure of a playground swing. Mrs. Wellington's car was back in the driveway, indicating that she had returned from her business trip to New York earlier than expected. Maria realized that Mr. Wellington had probably told his wife about yesterday's events, which meant she would be facing both parents this morning instead of just Mr. Wellington. The thought made her stomach flutter with nervousness, but it didn't shake her resolve. She entered through the kitchen, as always, and was surprised to find Mrs. Wellington sitting at the breakfast table with a cup of coffee and her laptop open. The elegant woman looked up when Maria entered, her expression unreadable. "Good morning, Maria. Mrs. Wellington said in her usual polite but distant tone. James told me about yesterday's adventure. He's waiting for you in his study. Good morning, Mrs. Wellington, Maria replied respectfully. I hope your trip went well. It did, thank you. Maria, before you speak with James, I want you to know that Emma spent most of last night telling me about her walk with you. She was more excited than I've seen her in months. This comment surprised Maria. She had expected Mrs. Wellington to be angry about the unauthorized outing, not to acknowledge Emma's happiness. She's a wonderful little girl, Mrs. Wellington, very curious about the world. Mrs. Wellington nodded slowly, closing her laptop. Yes, she is. We'll talk more later, but for now, James is expecting you. Maria made her way through the familiar halls of the mansion toward Mr. Wellington's study. The room was located on the first floor, behind heavy oak doors that always made Maria feel like she was entering a private sanctuary. Mr. Wellington used this space for his most important business meetings and personal conversations. When she knocked on the door, his voice called for her to enter. Mr. Wellington was sitting behind his massive desk, the same desk where he had conducted million-dollar business deals and made decisions that affected hundreds of employees. But today, the desk seemed to create a barrier between them that felt more personal than professional. Good morning, Maria. Please have a seat, he said, gesturing to one of the leather chairs across from his desk. His tone was neutral, giving no indication of what he might be thinking. Good morning, Mr. Wellington. Thank you for agreeing to speak with me. I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday, and I've made some decisions, he began. But before I share them with you, I want to hear what you have to say. I believe in giving people a chance to explain themselves fully. Maria took a deep breath, calling upon all the courage she had spent the night gathering. Mr. Wellington, I want to start by saying that I understand why you were upset yesterday. I made a decision that wasn't mine to make, and I can see how that would feel like a betrayal of your trust. He nodded but didn't interrupt, so she continued. However, I also want you to know that my decision came from a place of love and concern for Emma. In the 8 years I've been working for your family, I've watched her grow into a brilliant, curious, and kind little girl. But I've also watched her become increasingly isolated from the world outside these walls. Mr. Wellington's expression remained neutral, but Maria could see that he was listening carefully to her words. Yesterday, when Emma asked to go for a walk, I saw something in her eyes that I had never seen before. It wasn't just curiosity, Mr. Wellington. It was longing. She's 8 years old, and she has never experienced the simple joy of playing on a public playground or walking through her own neighborhood. When we got to that little park and she saw those swings, her face lit up like she had discovered magic. Maria, Mr. Wellington began, but she held up her hand gently. Please let me finish. I know you and Mrs. Wellington work very hard to provide Emma with the best of everything. She has tutors, beautiful clothes, toys that most children only dream of. But she's missing something that money can't buy. She's missing the experience of being a regular child in the regular world. Maria paused, watching Mr. Wellington's face carefully. She could see that her words were having an impact, though she couldn't tell whether that impact was positive or negative. "I've been thinking about my own childhood in Guatemala," she continued. "We were poor, Mr. Wellington. Sometimes we didn't have enough food, and we certainly didn't have the luxuries that Emma enjoys every day. But we had freedom. We could explore our village, play with other children, make mistakes, and learn from them. Those experiences shaped who we became as adults." "And you think Emma needs those experiences too?" Mr. Wellington asked quietly. "I think Emma is hungry for them," Maria replied firmly. "Yesterday she asked me if I thought she was lost, not physically lost, but lost in a deeper way. An 8-year-old shouldn't have to ask that question, Mr. Wellington." The room fell silent for several long moments. Mr. Wellington leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled in front of his face as he considered Maria's words. Finally, he spoke. "Maria, do you have any idea what it's like to be constantly worried about your child's safety? Do you understand the kinds of threats that exist for families like ours?" "I'm beginning to understand," Maria admitted. "But I also think there's a difference between being cautious and being overprotective to the point where a child can't experience normal childhood activities. When I was Emma's age, my father was already a successful businessman," Mr. Wellington said, his voice taking on a reflective tone. "I remember being kidnapped for 3 days when I was 9 years old. Men took me from a school field trip and held me in a warehouse until my father paid a ransom. I was terrified every moment of those 3 days, and it changed how I see the world forever." This revelation shocked Maria. She had never heard Mr. Wellington speak about his childhood, and she had certainly never imagined that he had experienced such trauma. "I promised myself that my children would never go through what I went through," he continued. "That's why we live the way we do. That's why Emma is homeschooled, why we have security systems, why I was so angry when I realized you had taken her outside without protection." "I had no idea," Maria said softly. "Mr. Wellington, I'm so sorry that happened to you." "It was a long time ago," he replied, but Maria could see the pain was still there. "The point is my caution comes from experience, not paranoia." "But Emma isn't living," Maria said gently. "She's existing in a beautiful prison. Yesterday, when she was on those swings, I saw her truly living for the first time. Yes, there are risks in the world, but there are also wonders that she's missing every day she stays locked away in this house." Mr. Wellington stood up from his desk and walked to the window that overlooked the estate's gardens. "And I discussed this situation at length last night. Emma told her mother about every detail of your walk together. The playground, the other children she saw, the different houses in the neighborhood. Said she hadn't seen Emma so animated in months." Maria felt a flicker of hope. "Emma is a special little girl, Mr. Wellington. She deserves to experience the world, even if that means taking some carefully calculated risks." "That's where you and I may have found some common ground," Mr. Wellington said, turning back to face her. "And I have decided that perhaps we've been too protective. Emma is growing up, and she needs experiences that we can't provide within these walls." Maria's heart began to race. This conversation was not going in the direction she had expected. "However," Mr. Wellington continued. We can't simply allow Emma to roam freely without any security measures in place. If we're going to give her more freedom, we need to do it responsibly. Well, what are you thinking? Maria asked. Mr. Wellington returned to his desk and pulled out a folder that he opened carefully. And I spent most of the night researching options. We've contacted a private security company that specializes in protecting high-profile families while allowing their children to have more normal experiences. He showed Maria several photographs of what appeared to be ordinary people in casual clothes. These are trained security personnel who can blend into any environment. They could supervise Emma's activities without making her feel like she's being watched. You're thinking about hiring bodyguards for Emma? Maria asked, trying to process this unexpected development. Not bodyguards in the traditional sense, Mr. Wellington explained. More like invisible guardians, people who would be present during any outings but wouldn't interfere with Emma's experiences unless there was a genuine threat. Maria looked at the photographs more closely. The people in the pictures looked like they could be teachers, park workers, or just regular parents watching their own children play. This way, Emma could have the childhood experiences you believe she needs, and I could have peace of mind knowing she's protected, Mr. Wellington continued. It's a compromise. What would this mean for my role with Emma? Maria asked carefully. Mr. Wellington closed the folder and looked directly at her. That depends entirely on you, Maria. Yesterday, you showed me that you're willing to put Emma's needs ahead of your job's security. That's not something I can ignore, even if I disagree with how you went about it. I would do anything for Emma, Maria said without hesitation. I believe you would, Mr. Wellington replied. That's why I would like to offer you a new position within our family. Maria's confusion must have shown on her face, because Mr. Wellington smiled for the first time since she had entered his study. We want you to become Emma's companion and cultural guide, he explained. Your job would be to take Emma out into the world, to show her the experiences she's been missing, while working in coordination with the security team to ensure her safety. The proposal was so unexpected that Maria felt like she might be dreaming. You want me to take Emma on regular outings? We want you to help her experience childhood the way you remember it from your own youth, Mr. Wellington said. Playgrounds, libraries, museums, shopping centers, restaurants. All the places where regular children go and do regular children things. But what about her education, her tutoring sessions? Emma is ahead of her grade level in all subjects, Mr. Wellington explained. Her tutors have told us that she could easily afford to spend fewer hours in formal lessons and more time in what you might call real-world education. Maria felt tears forming in her eyes, but this time they were tears of joy and relief. Mr. Wellington, are you serious about this? Completely serious, but there would be conditions, he said, his tone becoming more formal again. You would work closely with the security team to plan all outings. You would have a special phone that connects directly to our security monitoring center, and you would undergo training to help you recognize potential threats and respond appropriately. I would do whatever training you think is necessary, Maria said eagerly. There's one more thing, Mr. Wellington added. This new position would come with a significant increase in salary. You would essentially be becoming Emma's personal guide to the world outside these walls. That's a responsibility we value highly. Maria could hardly believe what she was hearing. Less than 24 hours ago, she had thought she was going to lose her job. Now she was being offered a position that would allow her to give Emma all the childhood experiences she believed the little girl deserved. When would this new arrangement begin? Maria asked. Immediately, if you're willing to accept the position. The security team can be in place by this afternoon, and we thought Emma's first official outing could be a return visit to that playground where you took her yesterday. At that moment, there was a soft knock on the study door. Mrs. Wellington entered, followed by Emma, who looked nervous and sad. I thought Emma should hear this conversation, Mrs. Wellington said to her husband. Emma ran to Maria and threw her arms around her waist. Maria, are you going to leave us? Daddy said you might have to go away because we took a walk yesterday. Maria looked at Mr. Wellington, who nodded for her to explain the new arrangement. Emma, sweetheart, I'm not going anywhere, Maria said, kneeling down to Emma's eye level. In fact, your parents have asked me to do something very special. What? Emma asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. They've asked me to take you on adventures, Maria said, smiling at the little girl's surprised expression. We're going to visit parks and libraries and museums. We're going to explore the world together. Emma's face lit up with the same joy Maria had seen at the playground the day before. Really? We can go back to the park with the swings. We can go to that park and many other places, Maria confirmed. But we'll always be safe and we'll always have your parents' permission. Emma turned to her father with excitement. Daddy, is this really true? Mr. Wellington smiled at his daughter's enthusiasm. It's true, sweetheart. Maria is going to help you discover all the things you've been curious about. Can we go today? Emma asked hopefully. I don't see why not, Mrs. Wellington said, joining the conversation. The security team will be here this afternoon to meet with Maria and go over all the safety procedures. As the family discussed the details of Emma's new adventures, Maria felt overwhelmed with gratitude and excitement. She thought about how dramatically her life had changed in just 2 days. Yesterday, she had been a housekeeper who made an impulsive decision to take a little girl for a walk. Today, she was being entrusted with one of the most important jobs imaginable, helping a child discover the joy and wonder of the world around her. But even as she celebrated this unexpected opportunity, Maria knew that the real adventure was just beginning. Emma had spent 8 years living in isolation from the outside world. There would be challenges ahead as the little girl learned to navigate social situations, deal with disappointment, and experience both the kindness and cruelty that existed beyond the estate's protected walls. As they left Mr. Wellington's study to begin planning Emma's first official adventure, Emma slipped her small hand into Maria's and looked up at her with complete trust. Maria, will you teach me how to be brave in the big world? Emma asked. "I'll teach you everything I know," Maria promised, squeezing the little girl's hand gently. "And we'll learn new things together." Neither of them could have imagined that within a few hours, the security team arrived at the Wellington estate that afternoon exactly as promised. Maria was amazed by how normal they looked. The team leader, a woman named Sarah who appeared to be in her early 30s, could have easily been mistaken for a kindergarten teacher or a young mother at a playground. Her partner, David, looked like a college student who might be working part-time while finishing his degree. Sarah explained their approach to Maria in detail. "Our goal is to be completely invisible to Emma and everyone around her. We'll always be within sight, but we'll blend into whatever environment you're visiting. If you're at a playground, I might be reading a book on a nearby bench. If you're at a museum, David might be looking at exhibits a few rooms away." "What if Emma notices you're always around?" Maria asked. "Children are surprisingly unobservant about adults they don't interact with directly," David explained. "As long as we don't draw attention to ourselves, she probably won't realize we're following her from place to place." The team also provided Maria with a special phone that looked exactly like a regular smartphone, but had direct connections to their monitoring center. "If you ever feel unsafe or notice anything suspicious, just press this red button on the side," Sarah demonstrated. "We'll be by your side within seconds." Mrs. Wellington had spent the afternoon researching age-appropriate activities for Emma. She had compiled a list of places they could visit: the children's section of the local library, a hands-on science museum, several different parks and playgrounds, and even a pottery painting studio where Emma could create her own artwork. "I want Emma to have experiences with other children," Mrs. Wellington explained to Maria. "She's never really had friends her own age, and I think it's time for her to learn how to interact socially." Emma was practically bouncing with excitement as they prepared for their first official adventure. She had changed clothes 3 times, unable to decide what to wear for their visit to the Science Museum. Finally, she settled on her favorite jeans and a bright yellow sweater that made her golden curls shine. "Maria, do you think the other children at the museum will like me?" Emma asked as they walked toward the car. The question broke Maria's heart a little. Emma had no frame of reference for interacting with peers, no understanding of the social dynamics that most 8-year-olds navigated instinctively. "I think they'll love you," Maria replied honestly. "You're kind and curious and funny. Those are the qualities that make good friends." The Science Museum was perfect for Emma's first real-world adventure. It was designed specifically for children, with interactive exhibits that encouraged exploration and discovery. Maria watched with joy as Emma's eyes grew wide at the sight of other children her age running excitedly from exhibit to exhibit. "There are so many kids here," Emma whispered, as if she had discovered a secret that had been hidden from her for her entire life. Maria spotted Sarah sitting on a bench near the entrance, dressed in casual clothes and looking at a museum map like any other visitor. David was nowhere to be seen, but Maria knew he was somewhere nearby, maintaining the invisible protection that allowed Emma to explore freely. Emma's first interaction with another child happened at an exhibit about weather patterns. A boy who appeared to be about Emma's age was struggling to operate a machine that created miniature tornadoes. Emma watched him for a moment, then approached hesitantly. "I think you need to turn that dial the other way," Emma said quietly. The boy looked up at her gratefully. "Thanks, I'm Tommy. What's your name?" "Emma," she replied, and Maria could see the pride in her voice at making this simple introduction. "Do you want to try making a tornado together?" Tommy asked. Emma looked back at Maria, who nodded encouragingly. "I'd like that," Emma said. For the next 20 minutes, Maria watched Emma and Tommy experiment with different weather phenomena. Emma's homeschooling had given her an advanced understanding of scientific concepts, and she was able to explain things to Tommy that impressed both the boy and his mother, who was watching from a nearby bench. "Your daughter is very smart," Tommy's mother said to Maria. "Yes, she is," Maria replied, not bothering to correct the assumption about their relationship. In many ways, she felt more like Emma's mother than Mrs. Wellington did. As they moved through the museum, Emma gradually became more confident in her interactions with other children. She helped a younger girl reach a button on a tall exhibit, shared what she had learned about dinosaurs with a group of fascinated boys, and even invited a shy girl to join her in building structures with magnetic blocks. "She's a natural leader," Sarah said quietly, appearing at Maria's side during a moment when Emma was engaged with a group of children at a robotics exhibit. "She's been isolated for so long, but she has such good instincts about people," Maria observed. "The transition might be easier than her parents feared," Sarah agreed before disappearing back into the crowd. They had been at the museum for about 2 hours when the incident occurred that would change everything once again. Emma was in the museum's mock grocery store, an exhibit designed to teach children about nutrition and money management. She was shopping with 2 other girls she had met, carefully selecting plastic fruits and vegetables for their pretend meal. Maria was watching from a nearby display about food production when she noticed a man who seemed out of place. Unlike the other adults in the children's museum, he wasn't accompanying any children. He was standing near the grocery store exhibit, watching Emma specifically, and when Emma moved to a different area, he followed. Maria felt a chill of fear run down her spine. She looked around for Sarah or David, but couldn't spot them in the crowd. The man was wearing a dark jacket and sunglasses despite being indoors, and he had a phone in his hand that he seemed to be using to take pictures. Without thinking, Maria activated the emergency button on her special phone and began walking quickly toward Emma. The man noticed her approach and started moving faster toward Emma as well. "Emma," Maria called out, trying to keep her voice calm despite the panic rising in her chest. Emma looked up from her shopping game, smiling happily. "Maria, look, I'm buying ingredients to make dinner for you and my parents." The man was now only a few feet away from Emma. Maria could see him reaching into his jacket for something. She ran the last few steps and positioned herself between the man and Emma just as Sarah appeared from seemingly nowhere. "Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me," Sarah said firmly, showing the man what appeared to be some kind of badge. "I wasn't doing anything," the man protested, but Maria could see sweat beading on his forehead. "You were photographing a minor without her parents' permission and following her through the museum," Sarah replied calmly. "That's something we need to discuss." David materialized from the crowd and took the man's arm. "Let's step outside," he suggested, though his tone made it clear this wasn't really a suggestion. Emma watched this interaction with wide eyes. "Maria, what's happening? Who was that man?" Maria knelt down to Emma's level, trying to think of how to explain the situation without frightening her. "Sometimes there are people who don't follow the rules about being respectful of others," she said carefully. "The nice security people are just making sure everyone in the museum feels safe." "Was he a bad man?" Emma asked. "I think he was just confused about what's appropriate," Maria replied. "But Sarah and David are here to make sure nothing bad happens to us." As they left the museum that afternoon, Emma was quiet and thoughtful. The incident with the stranger had clearly affected her, though she was trying to process what it meant. "Maria," Emma said as they settled into the car for the ride home, "does this mean I can't come back to places like this?" The question revealed how quickly Emma understood the implications of what had happened. Maria realized that this was exactly the kind of experience that would have convinced the old Mr. and Mrs. Wellington to keep Emma locked away from the world permanently. "What do you think?" Maria asked gently, wanting Emma to work through her own feelings about the situation. Emma was quiet for several minutes, staring out the window as they drove through the city. Finally, she spoke. "I think bad things can happen anywhere," she said slowly. "Even at home, there could be bad people who want to hurt our family. But today, I made friends with Tommy and the other kids. I learned how to build a robot. I had fun in ways I never have before." Maria was amazed by the maturity of Emma's reasoning. "I think the scary man is just one small bad thing compared to all the good things that happened today," Emma continued. "And besides, Sarah and David were there to keep us safe. So maybe the solution isn't to hide from the world. Maybe the solution is to be smart about how we explore it." When they arrived back at the estate, both Mr. and Mrs. Wellington were waiting anxiously. Sarah had already briefed them about the incident, and Maria could see the conflict playing out on their faces. Their protective instincts were warring with their new understanding of what Emma needed to thrive. "How do you feel about what happened today?" Mrs. Wellington asked Emma directly. Emma surprised everyone with her response. "I feel proud," she said firmly. "I feel proud that I made new friends, learned new things, and didn't let one scary person ruin the best day I've ever had." Mr. Wellington looked at his daughter with amazement. "You're not afraid to go back out into the world?" "I'm a little afraid," Emma admitted. "But I'm more excited than afraid. And now I know that Maria and Sarah and David will always be there to protect me." That evening, as Maria prepared to leave for the day, Mrs. Wellington asked to speak with her privately. "Maria, I owe you an apology," Mrs. Wellington said. "When James first told me about your unauthorized outing with Emma, I was angry. I thought you had been irresponsible and reckless." I can understand why you felt that way, Maria replied. But after seeing Emma today, after watching how she handled the situation at the museum, I realized that you gave her something we never could have given her ourselves, Mrs. Wellington continued. You gave her confidence in herself and her ability to navigate the world. Emma is naturally brave and smart, Maria said. She just needed the opportunity to discover that about herself. The incident today could have traumatized her, Mrs. Wellington pointed out. It could have made her afraid to leave the house ever again. But instead, she processed it as just one small negative experience in a day full of positive ones. That's the kind of resilience we want her to develop. Mrs. Wellington paused, looking toward the stairs that led to Emma's room. James and I have been talking, and we want to expand your role even further. We want Emma to start attending a regular school, making real friends, participating in activities with other children her age. This announcement shocked Maria more than any of the day's previous surprises. You want Emma to go to public school. Private school initially, Mrs. Wellington clarified. But yes, we want her to have a normal educational and social experience. And we want you to be the bridge that helps her transition from the isolated life she's known to the connected life she deserves. What would that mean practically? Maria asked. It would mean accompanying her to school for the first few weeks, helping her navigate social situations, being available when she needs emotional support, Mrs. Wellington explained. Essentially, you would become her advocate and guide as she learns to be a regular child in the regular world. As Maria rode the bus home that evening, she reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun just 2 days earlier with a simple request from a curious 8-year-old girl. She thought about Emma's question from the day before, "Am I lost?" And she realized that Emma hadn't been lost at all. She had simply been waiting for someone to help her find her way to the life she was meant to live. 3 months later, Maria stood in the hallway of Westfield Academy, watching through a classroom window as Emma participated in a group discussion about a book they had been reading. Emma was animated and engaged, her hand shooting up frequently to share her thoughts and ideas. Around her, other children listened respectfully and responded to her comments with interest and enthusiasm. The shy, isolated girl who had once asked if she was lost had transformed into a confident, socially adept child who was not only thriving in her new environment, but helping other children thrive as well. Emma had become the student who welcomed new classmates, who helped struggling peers with their homework, and who organized playground games that included everyone. "She's remarkable," said Ms. Emma's teacher, joining Maria in the hallway. "In all my years of teaching, I've rarely seen a child adapt so quickly and completely to a new social environment." "She was ready for this," Maria replied. "She just needed the opportunity." The security team had gradually reduced their presence, as it became clear that Emma could navigate the school environment safely with just Maria's guidance. Sarah and David still provided discreet monitoring during field trips and special events, but Emma's daily school activities required only the normal security measures that protected all the students. Mr. and Mrs. Wellington had also changed in remarkable ways. They attended school events, volunteered for class projects, and even invited Emma's classmates to birthday parties and sleepovers at the estate. The mansion that had once been a fortress of isolation had become a gathering place where children could experience both luxury and warmth. Emma's question from that first day at the museum had stayed with Maria. "Do you think the other children will like me?" The answer had been a resounding yes, but not for the reasons Emma might have expected. The other children liked Emma not because she was wealthy or privileged, but because she was genuinely kind, curious, and inclusive. Her years of isolation had not made her spoiled or entitled. Instead, they had made her grateful for every friendship and appreciative of every new experience. On this particular afternoon, as Maria watched Emma confidently leading a discussion about environmental conservation, she thought about how dramatically all their lives had changed. Emma had found her place in the world. The Wellingtons had learned to balance protection with freedom, and Maria had discovered that sometimes the most important job you'll ever have isn't the one you applied for, but the one that finds you when someone needs you most. As the school day ended, and Emma bounded out of the classroom with her friends, chattering excitedly about plans for a weekend science project, Maria smiled at the memory of the scared little girl who had once asked if she was lost. Emma wasn't lost anymore. She had found exactly where she belonged, right in the middle of a rich, full, connected life, surrounded by people who valued her for who she was, not what she had. And Maria had found her place, too, as the bridge between Emma's protected past and her unlimited future. "Maria," Emma called out as she approached with her backpack bouncing behind her. "Guess what? Mrs. said I can help tutor the younger kids in math next semester, and Jessica invited me to her family's cabin for the weekend. Can I go, please?" Looking at Emma's bright, excited face, Maria remembered the conversation that had started this whole journey. Emma had asked if she was lost, but now Maria understood that the question hadn't really been about Emma at all. The question had been about all of them, finding their way to the family they were meant to be. "Let's call your parents and ask," Maria replied, taking Emma's hand as they walked toward the car. "But I have a feeling they're going to say yes." As they drove home through the busy city streets, Emma pressed her face to the window and watched the world passing by with the same wonder she had shown on that first unauthorized walk to the playground. But now, instead of being a forbidden adventure, the world outside was simply home, a place where Emma belonged, and where she would continue to grow, learn, and flourish for years to come. The daughter who had once asked if she was lost had not only found her way, she had shown everyone around her how to find theirs too. And the maid's next move, the decision to speak up for what a little girl needed rather than simply following orders, had shocked them all by revealing that sometimes the biggest act of love is helping someone find the courage to truly live. Son in bravery would come much sooner than anyone had planned, in a way that would test everything they thought they knew about trust, family, and the true meaning of being losty, the feeling of adventure that had filled her heart for one perfect afternoon.